Well, hello, gorgeous beings. Welcome. Welcome to the Thriving Life podcast. I'm so happy to be here with you. And today's an interesting day to be talking about how you rewire yourself to be magnetic to all that's possible. Hey, so if you're just joining us, make sure you put in the comments where you're hailing from and maybe a little bit about your day, maybe a word about your day, a sentence about your day. How's it going? In these times of great change, I just know that this podcast is going to become essential because what we're talking about is really how to quantum leap yourself to a life where you're consistently in overflow, not despite what's going on in the world, but literally as a result of what's going on in the world, that you flourish through these times of great change. That's what we're here for. So today we're going to talk about how to shift your paradigm and understand existence so deeply that your relationship to abundance in all of its forms uh, is able to reach a new level such that the way that life relates to you, the way that the universe relates to you, the way that others relate to you is from a place where you literally are magnetic to all that you desire. How's that sound? You already are magnetic to all that you desire. You're probably just a little in your way. So we're going to talk about how to actually I'm not really interested in helping you get out of your own way because that's about analyzing what's wrong. More interested today in actually making a paradigm shift. You up for that? You ready? Groovy? Yeah. Okay, so here we go. So we're talking about how you can rewire for abundance. It's not necessarily just financial abundance, but you might be asking yourself these questions. Why do I feel like there's so much more available, but I'm not able to plug into it? It's like this sense of urgency inside that there's more available in all areas, in love, in finances, in the dream that's dreaming you, your purpose. But like most people, well, we'll talk about that in a second. And then you might be asking yourself this question as well. What's one area where you feel like it's the most pervasive area, right? Where things just aren't, you're not magnetic. Maybe you've never been magnetic to what you desire. Do you ever wonder what that's all about? And last but not least is, have you ever asked yourself this question? I've experienced kind of unexpected magical flow before where it just happened. Maybe it was for a week or a month, or maybe it was for a few years, but then it just went away. Don't you wonder what actually happened? Like what was going on then that's not going on now? And what is that thing where you're just in flow and you stay in flow and it's crazy? It's interesting, isn't it? So before we dive in together, I want to let you know that we've created I have had so much fun creating a quiz. Just want you to know. Have had so much fun creating a quiz that is all about your being in the flow. It's the in the flow quotient. So imagine if you could tell how in the flow you are. That would really pertain to today, right? And that in the flow quotient quiz is designed to help you kind of identify the places where you're not aligned with the way that life works. And it's going to get you a beautiful set of answers. It's also going to send you, we actually send you some tips based on your answers. And then there's also an opportunity to come to a master class that we're doing very soon, all about rewiring your biology to being in total flow, which really relates to everything we're doing here in the world. So the In the Flow quiz, if you want to know your quotient, just make sure you click on the link. It's in the show notes, and you can actually find out where you're at. Maybe you can tell us by the next time we have our podcast and share your score with us. All right, onward and upward. Let's dive in. Okay. Understanding the answers to those questions, like, where do blockages come from and why don't people shift? Well, the answer comes from the way that most people approach the shifts. What they do is they try to excavate beliefs that aren't working. That's kind of, and I say this with total love, especially if you're a coach who works on beliefs. It's a great step on the journey, but if you're here listening to the podcast, you're probably someone who's seeking kind of those quantum leapy type results rather than spending the rest of your life excavating beliefs. Of course, understanding that by putting your attention on the beliefs about scarcity or about being blocked, you're literally activating the blockages and the scarcity. So how do you open yourself up to, how do you actually shift your beingness simply to understand and relate to life like it's all coming to you? What I'd love you to do right now is kind of think of a time where everything came to you. It might have been 5 minutes and it might have been a year. But think of a time. Put it in the comments. I want to see. When was a time where everything just came to you, and on what subject was it? Could have been love, could have been finding an apartment, could have been, about money. It could have been getting an amazing job. Just look at it and think about your state of mind before you got that. Were you grumbly and having a bad time? Or were you already in a different state of mind? So what I want to share about this is excavating how come you're stuck is not actually a very productive way. In other words, analyzing the ways that you think you're stuck is actually a highly unproductive way, according to the laws of physics, to actually move on. It's a long-standing one. I mean, Freud and Jung and all those guys were looking for deep-rooted reasons as to how come we're stuck. And we've been stuck in a paradigm called excavation and analysis. I don't know if you're exhausted about that, but there is another way based on the laws of physics. And so here's something you need to know, that literally the instant that you have a problem or you feel stuck is the instant that the smallest particles of us, actually the smallest waveforms, quarks, they're not even particles. They're aspects of existence. Instantaneously, when you have a problem, there's an asking. You have an asking for something different, even if you don't verbalize it. And that asking actually has consciousness, has the smallest aspects of existence respond and rearrange themselves. Now, you may have heard that before. You may not have heard that before. But what I want you to know is this: you don't have to consciously ask. The asking the asking and the answer occurs in an instant. It's not even an instant because it's not even measured in time. The instant you have the problem, you're now entangled with the answer. And consciousness makes available to you the answer. But as long as you're analyzing the problem, consciousness, life, physics, the smallest aspects of us think that you're interested because that's where you're putting your attention, and you have free will to choose where you put your attention, given that you have free will and you're choosing to put your attention on your brokenness and what needs fixing, consciousness thinks you want more of that. It doesn't judge, it just thinks that you do. So I want to talk about this a little bit so that you really understand the foundations of certainly the work at the Wide Awakening. By the way, if you haven't read our book, read the book that I wrote called Unstuck: The Physics of Getting Out of Your Own Way, may I highly suggest that right now, because it really pertains to what we're talking about. It's one of the reasons why people don't get in flow, because we've been entrained to believe that you have to analyze how come you're not, right? So I want to share a couple of studies that have been done lately, right? I want to share a couple of studies. One of them is about how our atoms are situated, formed, and what the constituent parts are. Now, I think we'd all agree here in 3D that everything is made of atoms, right? Even our bodies are made of atoms. Even the air is made of atoms. That's a gas, right? There are molecules that make up atoms, and not to be confused with my husband, Adam. So, but there are molecules that make up that there are atoms that make up molecules, and those atoms are made of protons, neutrons, and electrons. Now, I just want to talk about the fact that about protons and electrons just for a moment. So imagine that protons are made up of little things called quarks. They aren't fundamental particles because they're made up of something else more quantum physical. So they're made up of these little quarks that are that are brought together by gluons. Yes, they're called gluons. Isn't that crazy? But what I want you to know about quarks and gluons is that they're non-local. They disappear and come back. They disappear and come back. So a foundational element of atoms with a T are made up, okay, are made up of disappearing and reappearing, disappearing and reappearing particles, aspects, let's call them characteristics. Now that's a proton. Let's go over to an electron. So what I was taught in high school is that electrons they have a valence shell and they go around and around, they like orbit the middle. But and it's still taught in school and it's wrong. Every physicist knows that that's wrong. It doesn't go around and around. It disappears and reappears, disappears and reappears. It doesn't go around. So in other words, electrons are non-local. They aren't situated somewhere. And neither are the characteristics of the internals of a proton, meaning that everything we're made of disappears and reappears. Now, what is happening in the space between? What is happening in the time where it's gone? This is where physicists have a little bit of an argument, but not too much. But there is an argument. Here's what I see in the hologram of physics is that we have the opportunity, because our atoms are made of particulate or characteristics that are governed by our intention and by our awareness and by our consciousness. And quite literally, in every millisecond, you have an opportunity to rearrange where the most foundational parts of us show up. You can change your mind, change your focus, and change where the actual reality of our atomic three-dimensional world shows up. So when you look at what's happening in the world, I certainly am more interested myself, based on the laws of physics, in facing forward and using the contrast and using what's not working in the world to inspire me to focus on what is. I think we need one other experiment explained, which is the slot experiment, whereby particulate was sent through, kind of like if you took a tennis ball machine and you had wet, red painted tennis balls and you had two slots big enough for the tennis balls to go through. Imagine that quantum particulate was sent through two slots, just like these wet tennis balls were sent through. And imagine that if you send wet tennis balls through two slots, if there was a wall on the other side, those wet tennis balls, if they were red, would land kind of in a relatively straight line, right? According to the two lines that the tennis balls were sent through. And we have a foundational, as human beings, we have a foundational understanding, even as a kid, of physics, that if you throw enough balls through those two, you'll end up with two straight lines. The thing is, the original experiment, of course, was done in a vacuum. And in that vacuum, our understanding of where those eensy-weensy particles would land aren't included. In the vacuum, our intention, our knowing, our basic understanding of physics, even if you wouldn't call it that at 8 years old, of them landing in two straight lines aren't there. So what happened is that these electrons are sent through the two slots, and on the other side, it was as though a whole field, like as if it was water, a whole field of those particulates, of those aspects of the field, got disturbed, and it was like waves. So when you fired them through the slots, there were waves that came out the other side. Interesting, neither here nor there. You probably don't think it's a big deal. Maybe you've even heard this before. But people bypass it. This is no small experiment, because when the experiment was done without the vacuum and the human consciousness was available to the experiment, what happened is instead of there being a field of possibility where those particles, those aspects could land anywhere, the instant a human being's consciousness was in the room, those subatomic particles actually landed in two straight lines. What does that mean? It means your reality, literally the subatomic particles that form everything, land as exactly as you expect, whether you're conscious of it or not. You are literally giving off information, photon packages of information that are informing the subatomic particulate which way they're going to land. In other words, if we're going to say this in real terms, if you want to know where your vibration is at and where your thoughts are at, subconscious or not, about money, for instance, then look at how your life is landing. Look at what's in your bank account. Look at how it flows. If you want to know about how receptive you are to the miracles being normals, look at how often they happen. Are they happening all day, every day? Are you aware of them all day, every day? Or is it like kind of like once a month or once a week? And you go, oh my God, life loves me. Instead of having that feeling of being in the flow all the time. These are some pretty foundational pieces to our work, in that if you don't understand the laws of physics, i.e., if you focus on excavating everything that's wrong with you, you'll just end up with more reasons to excavate the rest of your life. So this is an entirely different way of moving through stuff. I was talking to a girlfriend today, and I thought it was really interesting. She was and I had another client talking about his relationship to being on the spectrum. And I've had a few clients like that, as you can probably imagine, people who feel like they're real unicorns. And a couple of times, including today, someone has called me up and said, "Oh, I forgot that this person that I'm in relationship is on the spectrum, and they don't release, like, I'm not getting my emotional well-being taken care of. They don't relate to me in a way that's helpful." But they forgot, and as soon as they had that awareness again, it's like everything dropped in, and instead of having an expectation that they should be a different way than they are, all of a sudden there was love because they no longer projected that expectation, because literally for someone who's on the spectrum, it's very difficult to respond emotionally to another person the same way. So all of a sudden there was great love. Did the relationship change? No, the relationship did not change. They're still the same people. But because the understanding of life shifted, all of a sudden love became available. And that's literally getting out of the way of the universe, because your new understanding is in alignment with the universe. And instead of analyzing what's stuck, there was a realization of what's true. And realizing deeper truths about consciousness is it's exponentially more productive than actually excavating. Because what deeper awarenesses do is they actually expand your awareness so deeply that you start to align with life and physics based on those deeper truths, and you can transmute hundreds of beliefs at a time instead. Aren't you interested in transmuting hundreds of beliefs? So, yeah. So I share this with you because, I'm going to talk in the next few weeks about the masterclass coming up. And I want you to know, and we'll have masterclasses occasionally all year. So pay attention. But the one coming up is all about what we're talking about right now. So let's go back to the topic of the day. Topic of the day is about why we feel blocked. Why we feel blocked is because we keep focusing on blockages. The second question a lot of people ask are, what's one area where it's like, where do you know you feel stuck? What area of your life? I'm going to give you a little clue, that instead, and it's this: instead of facing your mind towards what's in my way, face your mind towards what is a deeper truth about life and my relationship to this area of my life. What's a deeper truth that I would allow to drop in right now? What's a deeper truth that's available to me based on the conversation we've just had about protons and electrons and slot experiments? What's a deeper truth? Like maybe you've had love before. If you had love before, it's in you to be magnetic to that, even if it's not happening right now. So instead of excavating, we start to activate deeper truths. Let me give you some more deeper truths. Saying if it's about money, it would be like this. I know there are people out there that are having a better abundant flow than I am. And I am no smarter or less intelligent than them. So it is possible. If they have that, then I can have that. And I know that there are people in the 9 billion people alive on the planet who have built this bridge. And if people have built that metaphysical bridge of understanding to their next level, then it's also available to me. That would be an evolution. That would be dropping into a deeper consciousness about, but you have to be committed to thinking that way. Well, you don't have to be. I'm not the boss of you. But most certainly, if what you desire is more flow and more abundance, then consistently training your brain in the direction of deeper truths instead of excavations is going to get you to a place where everything starts to become abundant. Just opening the doorway. I think we talked about last time that one of the most important things we can do is understand how we evolve. And how we evolve is first we open the doorway to a new possibility, and that'll happen a lot in these podcasts. The second step is you have to have the experience of those new doorways, of those new possibilities fairly quickly after you make them. That's why we hold workshops, right? In order for you to experience it. And the third thing is you want to get to a place where you've experienced it so much and collected evidence that that level of flow is available to you so much that it becomes your new normal, sort of like riding a bike, right? And so one of the things that I love to recommend to people is keeping an evidence journal. We can thank Natalie Ledwell of Mind Movies for that. An evidence journal, collecting evidence at the end of every day for unimagined results. So you start to see how you getting out of the way and of consciousness and aligning with it more. You start to develop the evidence. And then the first thing in the morning, what you do when you wake up is actually start to look for deeper truths. Wake up to deeper truths. Maybe even imagine how your day might go, knowing the meetings that you have, and letting your biology catch up to a new future. So then the last thing we talked about is this unexpected flow of abundance that you've had, that maybe it hasn't been consistent for you, right? You haven't been able to keep consistently. You ever had that? So the consistency, I was talking to someone yesterday who was who every once in a while she would see almost like the matrix, the aspect of consciousness, which I totally relate to. It happens to me a lot. And so she would just be able to unplug from this reality that we've agreed to and see all the constituent parts. Kind of creepy, right? But as soon as she would try to dive into it, she wouldn't be able to see it. She would try to focus in. But here's the thing, you guys, with intuitions and with multidimensional things and with, metaphysical phenomenon, as soon as you go after it, like with a degree of desperation, you literally push it away. What I shared with her, same as abundance, is don't make it abnormal. Don't get all excited. Just back up and allow yourself to see the bigger picture. And abundance is the same way. Actually back away from it. Stop going after it and let the possibilities come to you. The best way to do that is to make sure that every day you're focusing on, you're collecting evidence for your blessings. And by collecting evidence for your blessings as a practice, what happens is you're telling consciousness you want more instead of focusing on your brokenness. And we already talked about the physics of that. So understand that it's going to take a good 3 months of consistency. But if your entire life changed in 3 months, just from focusing on, take a break from how you've been doing it. Take a break. And the keys to the kingdom are before you. The slot experiment says it all. Literally, your atoms are disappearing and reappearing, or at least the constituent parts are, giving you an opportunity in every moment, in every millisecond. All is not lost to actually rewire yourself towards an abundant life. You have so much opportunity. We have so much opportunity. And the contrast is creating lots of catalyzing energy to get clear. So you guys, make sure you do our quiz. the In the Flow Quotient quiz. See how in the flow you are. Love to see how in the flow you are, and just adore you. Just, my heart is so full. I'm so glad you're here for this journey. Make sure you like us and you follow us, and you share this with someone maybe that you love, and or even someone that you like, or someone that can use some help. All right, you guys, biggest hugs ever. Have a good one.